The time is 6:35 and the date's Wednesday, September 24. Commissioner Jim Franklin is absent, and at the moment, Commissioner Buzz Artiano is absent, but that doesn't mean he's not going to check in. Attending virtually is Commissioner Dot McFarland. I don't know if I see her. Here is Megan Hickey.
Here.
And Marilyn Cozadoy.
Here.
Brian Payne.
Here.
And I'm Colina Vendetti. Please note that we're doing a hybrid meeting, and this is with both in-person and virtual attendance. If a member of the virtual public would like to make comments during a public hearing, please use the raise hand function on Zoom, and you'll be assigned a speaking time. If you're listening in via telephone dial-in, press *9 to raise your hand, and then press *6 to unmute yourself. This meeting's being recorded by the local scene. Thank you very much. And a record of this meeting would be posted on the local scene website as soon as they're able. Anyone intending to make an audio or a video recording of this meeting should notify me at this time. Okay. Under additional announcements, I'd like to announce that the Kingston's Open Space Committee is seeking 2 new members. The committee assists the Conservation Committee, assists conservation in overseeing the management and use of conservation properties to help all of us better access and utilize these resources in a positive way. This is the opportunity for 2 residents to assist in implementing that mission of the town's open space plan and to help improve parking and trails and identify future conservation and passive recreation priorities in the town, among other things. You might inquire by calling the Conservation Department at 781-585-0537 or by emailing Juliana Denham, our illustrious clerk, at jdenham, that's JDENUM, at kingstonma.gov. And that's JDENUM at kingstonma.gov. So the first thing is the signing of documents. Have you got anything for us to sign?
Yep, it's coming down from the other way. We have the orders of conditions for One Landing Road that were issued at the last, or that were approved at the last meeting. We have the enforcement order for 15 Bagnell Street to be ratified. And we have a invoice from Beals and Thomas for the Sampsons Brook Headwaters Restoration Project, and an invoice from Barrett Tree Service for the Callista Farm invasive plant treatment funded through CPC.
All right. So we're waiting for those to work their way down. Why don't we move on to action items?
Can I ask a quick question about that?
Yes, Brian.
Matt, the CPC ones, am I supposed to sign that? I signed already as chair of the CPC. So is there a conflict there?
I don't think so. Sign it anyways, that way I have 4 signatures on there, and if we have to replace it because somebody
your
says it's wrong, then we'll have Buzz or Dot sign it.
Anything else?
No, thank you.
Great. So I'm going to open a public meeting. This is to discuss the request for determination of applicability, we call it an RDA, for 15 Crystal Drive, and that's for the construction of a retaining wall and grading within the buffer zone to wetland resource areas. The applicants requested a continuance to October 9th, 2024. Do I hear a motion to continue the meeting to, this meeting to October 9th, 2024?
I'll make that motion.
Thank you, Marilyn. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Megan. Great. Let's take a vote on it. Dot, you there to vote?
Yes.
There you go.
Yes.
Thank you. Megan?
Yes.
Kalina's a yes. Marilyn?
Yes.
Yes. And Brian?
Yes.
Okay, that passes, thanks. So that's continued to October 9. I'll now open a public meeting to discuss the request for determination of applicability for 11 Wharf Lane for the installation of a gravel driveway. The use of loam and hydroseed to raise a portion of the lawn and the removal of trees and vegetation within the buffer zone of several coastal wetland resource areas and within the land subject to coastal storm flowage. Matt, do you have any comments to start?
I think we haven't presented any of this at a meeting before, right?
No,
No.
I've had discussions with Mary Hill.
Yeah, why don't we have Brad give a little presentation on
All
this?
right.
And if you want, I can pull up the digital version of it.
Sure, that'd be
Sure.
great.
Brad, would you please state your name for the record?
Sure. Brad Holmes with ECR on behalf of Mary Hill for her property at 11 Wharf Lane. The commission issued an enforcement order for landscape activities, unpermitted landscape activities at the property. In response to that, we prepared a restoration proposal and a mitigation proposal to address those action items. And coordination with the Conservation Office asked to include that proposal into the request for determination of applicability, so it came through as a permit application. So what we've done is we prepared this RDA application to include the mitigation activities. It was about in the, I don't know, the spring or so, there was some more, not major landscape activities, but lawn restoration, removal of a tree in the front yard, a past ornamental tree, restoration of the lawn to just improve it, and there was a gravel driveway at the rear of the property off of, you can see it's kind of in that southwest section near Wharf Lane. That was an area that was lawn and is converted to a gravel area for parking. It was, I think it was parked on before, but it was more of a lawn hard pack. They changed it to a gravel area. The commission issued an enforcement order, and since that time, they haven't done any work or activities until we coordinate with you. As you can see in the bottom section, that brown area, that area is an area of landscape that has just been left untouched until we have coordination from the commission. It is overgrown, not fully. Well, the whole area is overgrown, but not fully with invasives. There's a small stand of mugwort in there that we'd like to remove and then repair that area. And then if you see along the top of the coastal bank in brown, there's an area there that has Japanese knotweed that the hills have managed over time, but have left untouched until we have your approval. And we'd like to treat and remove that so that it doesn't continue to be a pest and spread. And as mitigation for the activities that were done previously, we're proposing to remove lawn area and convert to native plantings. So we would turf out that area shown in green and revegetate it with native saplings and a mix of shrubs, and kind of create a vegetated buffer, a small vegetated buffer on the property which doesn't exist now. And we're asking the commission to confirm this work through a determination that it doesn't require additional permitting and lifts the enforcement order. And with that, I'll turn it back to you, Matt. That's a brief overview, and we can go into more detail if you need it, but I know you have some comments.
You want to make your comments, Matt?
Sure, yeah, and just to point out, so we have this scheduled as an RDA discussion under a public meeting, but we also have the enforcement issue that sort of goes along with it. So this is on the agenda under both action items and enforcement. I think you can probably deal with everything now during this discussion, just with the caveat that any mitigation work would be permitted through an enforcement order and not a DOA. A DOA would be issued for any of the work that was already done without permit, so it would be in DOA in retro. So, you know, really, I have no issue with what Brad showed. It's really up to the commission as far as whether they think, you know, this mitigation is sufficient for what was done. I mean, really, I think, like many enforcement issues, this was two different things. There was some need to permit in retro, and then there was some need of mitigation for, mostly for tree removal, I believe. So what they've proposed here definitely provides, you know, some added stability to the coastal bank. It was definitely notable, the Japanese knotweed on the coastal bank, and that doesn't really do a good job of stabilizing. One, I mean, sort of, I guess, questionable thing was that brown area on the southeast there, as far as whether you were asking that to be part of enforcement or a DOA, because it sort of seemed like there wasn't a real plan for that. That was just kind of a discussion, like they'd like to do something there.
And that, you're basically correct. That area, since the enforcement has just been not touched, so that we haven't, we don't have additional disagreements. There is mugwort in there, and there's an area that needs to be re-landscaped to just clean it up. It's not a huge area. As I noted in the plan, it would be something that you and I would meet on prior to the start of work, just to go over what the landscape activities are. There really isn't much. It's just there's some soil pile that has been left, and the area is just overgrown. So the mugwort needs to be grubbed out, and then just the area abutting the house, the soil needs to be spread and just, cleaned up. It's not a big area, but that would be something that, prior to any of that work being done, we'd make sure that we discuss it with staff and, we're in agreement.
Yeah, it's a little different way, I guess, to do it. So in that sense, the commission would be looking at that brown area on the bottom of the plan as though that would be approved through this DOA as a landscaped area. It's just from memory through the aerial imagery through time, that was already a landscaped area. It's just, it's a little tricky. It does go right up to the coastal bank. It doesn't appear that there's really any protection there at all. So yeah, it's a little hard, I guess, to permit.
Well, the area
Without seeing anything.
identified in yellow, I'm saying brown, is just the overgrown area. That's not necessarily the entire area that would be landscaped. It's just been left unmanaged until we have an agreement. It isn't a proposal to go out and re-landscape that whole area. It's just that in and around the house and the patio and steps needs to be fixed, and probably just clean up some of the shrubs that are there, overgrown, remove the mugwort. It's really minor in nature. It was, as you said, previously landscaped. We're not looking to landscape out to the, with patio or any hardscape. It's just a cleanup. And again, that would be something we could review on site.
Commission have any
do
questions
we have
on
any-
that? Comments?
Comments, questions?
My only concern is that if it's not on this plan and it's changed, then I'd rather have everything on the plan is what it's gonna end up as. So that way there's no surprise, my brain is not working, I apologize. If it's gonna be grass, I'd rather have it say grass. If there's gonna be shrubs kept, I'd rather have it say what shrubs are gonna be there, so that way when we look at this plan in 5 years, not saying that there's gonna be another issue, but if there is an issue, we can say this is what we approved, this is what should be there. That way there's just no confusion. It keeps it cleaner.
It makes me a little more comfortable not having to make, I'm fine making calls with vegetation, different species, things like that, but it's,
Okay.
I think if you go to the.
it seems to me like there's a little bit of, I don't know, gray area there with that where we could start talking about hardscape or, I don't know, different types of surfaces and everything, and I'm not gonna know necessarily what to say, and then I end up in a situation where if the commission's asking me like, well, why would you have said yes to that? Or now we don't have that, defined. So I do agree that having that at least defined to the level of roughly what's gonna be there, I think would be probably helpful.
We can keep it a little bit more simple, and then if we want to get more landscape detail, we can come back to the commission. But if you look at that, if you were able to go to picture number 3 in the photographs in the RDA, you'll just see that it's just an area that hasn't been managed. It's just to clean it up. It's really not proposing patio or hardscape or anything. There's some stone pile, there's some old dirt piles. That picture there on the top,
This one right here.
yes.
Oh.
It's just to get in there and get the mugwort out, you know, clean up those rock piles, and just, when I say landscape, it's not part of a mitigation planting, it's just to clean up that area. You can see that it's just, since the enforcement orders were issued, you know, they didn't want to do any work until we had an agreement, and that's the proposal there, is just to clean up that corner.
What is it? Is it typically lawn? Is it typically?
It's, right now, it's basically just what you can see, it's kind of rubble.
What I think is this is one of the, to memory, this is one of the areas where trees were removed over the years. Trees or shrubs, right?
Sure.
Yeah, just
Mary Hill, 11 Wharf Lane, there were no trees here.
No?
Nope, there were no trees. This was basically, it's Japanese knotweed, mugwort, bittersweet, it's Rosa Sharon. It was just, when we bought the house, it was just a mess of everything. And so now, with the enforcement order from June, the whole summer, we've done nothing to maintain it. So it's just gotten so overgrown. And I didn't even realize that we had more than one invasive species until Brad came down and identified others. So it's a very small area to the property line of our neighbor at 2 Braintree Avenue, but it's just become overgrown. And yes, I do, you know, it is right to the seawall, but it was never anything, it's all just been left over from the previous owners. Just stuff that was just thrown into the ground, basically, is really all that's there.
I think, I mean, I would have no issue with approving the removal of the invasives, or even beyond invasives, the vegetation in that area. There was nothing particularly useful in that area. It's just a matter of whether you want it to end at that, like basically to give approval either through the enforcement order or through the retro DOA to remove those species from that area. Probably through the DOA, you know, technically with the invasives, you could have that be part of the enforcement, but probably would recommend doing that through the DOA. And I would say probably have it end there. And then you want to come forward and do something else there, some sort of different landscaping, then just file something. It's a tricky, in most cases, I would say an admin review is probably fine, but with the proximity to the coastal bank, I mean, it may need another RDA filing to do something like that. Depending on what you want to do. I mean, if you're talking about just popping a couple of native plants in or something, I think that's pretty easy. But if it's a more formal landscape or something a little more in-depth, I think you want to file something. Right, if we were going to
extend hardscape or put a patio or whatever, we'd come back to the commission on that.
Yeah, and I think, even plantings, I think if there were more extensive plantings, horticultural plantings, you probably want to come back to the commission for something like that, unless there's something you wanted to pitch now, and they can kind of write that in there. If you're saying like you just want to clean it up and throw in some standard landscape plants and mulch or something along those lines, then if the commission thinks that's fine, they can throw that in on the DOA so that it's at least documented that that's approved by this and that you don't have to come back to do that. Because I mean, to come back for an RDA just for a couple of plants,
Right.
even though that is done, people do file
Yeah.
RDAs just for planting things at the top of the coastal bank. You could get that done now if you had just some basic idea of what you'd want to do. Otherwise, we can keep it at removal of those plants and site stabilization.
So in that sense, you'd say come back at another meeting and continue this, or you'd be able to kind of roll that into the?
Yeah, I mean, if you said right now that, you know, what you want to do is remove the vegetation shown in that picture and just get that part of the yard a little better organized and cleaned up and stabilized and plant some whatever.
We can use, yeah, that's all we're looking to do. We'll use species that are already on the mitigation
On the plan?
And just
Okay.
curl that around the edge.
Yeah, I think I would have no issue with that being part of the DOA.
I don't either. Just so it's all clear. It just makes it a lot easier.
Anything else from the commission?
Nope.
Are there any comments from the members of the public present on this? And online, do we have anyone online?
I don't see anything. I don't
All
have
right.
for some reason, like a pop-up that shows everybody when I'm screen sharing, I'll stop my share. And I see
Nothing,
nobody.
okay, that's great. So do I hear a motion to accept the request and issue a -3 DOA?
I'll make that motion.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
All right, and let's vote on that. Dot?
Yes.
Megan?
Yes.
Cleaner's a yes. Buzz, not here. Marilyn?
Yes.
Brian?
Yes.
All right, that motion passes. We're all set.
Enforcement order. You're just gonna make a motion to issue an enforcement order for the mitigation work as proposed.
I'll make that motion.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, and Dot?
Yes.
Megan?
Yes.
Cleaner's a yes. Marilyn?
Yes.
And Brian?
Yes.
Okay, that motion also passes.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Brad.
Good night.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Mary.
Do we have any hearings tonight?
No.
All right, so I'm going to open a public meeting to discuss the request for determination of applicability for 26 Wapping Road for repaving the parking area and routine vegetation management within 200-foot riverfront area to the Jones River and the buffer zone of a bordering vegetated wetland. The project also proposes the installation of a fence within the buffer zone of a bordering vegetated wetland. Do you have any comments, Matt?
Sure, yeah, and I apologize to the applicant. I don't know if we have reached out on this or not. We've been pretty busy, but no wetland delineation associated with the RDA filing. So in terms of our review, that was my sort of foremost comment on that, was that a wetland delineation should be done before the commission makes a determination. There were some things about a fence and some different vegetative treatments on different parts of the property, and it's hard for the commission to make those determinations unless they know where the wetland boundaries are to make sure that there are setbacks that are reached. And it looked like that may not be the case for the fence based on what was put in front of us, but it did state that a wetland delineation would be done, I think before we got an as-built, but it really should be done before we assess. So I just wanted to state that right now in case that is a reason for y'all to say you want to continue, or if you wanted to discuss that.
I would be comfortable with continuing in order to get the wetland delineation and then discuss it from there.
Maybe we'll see if the applicant or rep has any,
Is there anything, is
comment?
the rep here? Is there a representative?
Yeah, isn't,
Is that live?
Yes, I am.
so-
Would you identify?
Yes, I am. I am online.
Yeah, you can identify
yes, for the
yourself.
record, my name is Eric Dias. I think we might have a delay somewhere. If everybody can hear me,
Yep.
for the record, my name is Eric Dias. I'm a registered professional engineer with Strong Point Engineering, and I am representing the Jones River Realty Company for this project tonight. The owner or the project representative from Jones River Realty is also on the call. Unfortunately, we did not receive that comment before the meeting. What I can tell you is this: the wetland delineation that we showed on the RDA plan is one that was taken from a plan of record, and many of those flags still existed in the field at the time that this plan was put together. The wetland through the area in question is very well defined. There's a pretty good slope right there that helps define that wetland. However, since this plan was put forward, the entire site has been delineated, in fact, by Brad Holmes, who was just before you folks. That delineation is very, very similar to what is shown on this plan. The wetland has not changed very much. So if the commission is more comfortable with us locating those flags and adding them to this plan, we can do that. But certainly what I would like to do, at least, is just discuss the matter at hand, so that if we do have to continue this, we might have some guidance from the commission before we come back, if that's okay.
Yeah, I think that would be good.
Okay, great. So, I'm gonna share my screen if you don't mind, if I have the ability to do that, and I think I do. Let me do this. Everybody see the dogs?
Yes.
There we go. All right. So this is the site at 26 Wapping Road. I'm gonna stay out here for a minute, just for orientation. Wapping Road is up here. The main building is right off of Wapping Road. And the garage building is located over here. And this is the area where most of, the work happened. So, you know, just a little bit about what led us to this point. The applicant has been on this property for about 50 years. They've been great stewards of the property. They've done a lot of work through the years with the Jones River Watershed Association, whether it be donating land to them or donating in other ways. So all of that is just to say that, you know, these guys do a good job. They definitely keep an eye toward conservation, and this was not an act of them maliciously disregarding a regulation. They simply didn't realize they had to file for this work, or at least come forward and discuss with the commission. So after they received the enforcement order, I believe it was June, they contacted me and we got involved and took a look at this. The good news is that the work that was performed didn't violate anything as far as the Wetland Protection Act or the bylaw, meaning that it certainly could have been permitted, or a determination issued that a notice of intent wasn't necessary had it come before you. So that's good. I'm going to jump around the letter that I gave you a little bit and just start with the easiest of the things that happened. So they did propose repave the existing bituminous parking lot that is located within the 200 riverfront up in the upper portion of the site. I'll call it upper, the portion closest to Wapping Road, that is north, and does have some buffer zone impact past the garage and down into the lower limits of the bituminous parking area. They held the same footprint that was there. They did employ some erosion and sedimentation controls before they did this. They did not alter drainage patterns, anything like that. So really, this work does fall under finished landscaping technically. And that is something that, because they didn't create any new impervious or any new disturbances, that the commission could have allowed or issued a determination on. The other work that was performed, I'm going to zoom in a little bit here, and I do have some photos of this in the letter that I had sent to you. This area that you see back here in the orange hatch, this is an area where they had done some basically brush clearing, vegetation management. The stuff that was in here was pretty thickly overgrown and really kind of scraggly and aggressive. The primary reason that this was done, this garage building holds materials that they are contractually obligated to keep in a climate-controlled environment. The brush in the back of the garage had grown up to the point that it overtook the air conditioning condensers and killed them. So one, they had to get this material out of the area, this brush out of the area so they could fix the condensers. But two, they had to stop it from happening again before they lost whatever is stored in this garage building, and then have some serious problems. Additionally, this area down here, sort of behind the concrete dumpster pad, there was a little bit of vegetation management that happened in this area. And the reason for that is, you can see this line with the FM on it is their sewer force main. All of the sewer on the site discharges to a holding tank here, and then is pumped around the back of the garage building all the way up to Wapping Road. So sewer force mains are usually a pretty shallow installation. The stuff that was growing there has some pretty deep root systems and pretty aggressive vegetation, so it was cleared really to protect that. So again, certainly, work that could have been allowed had they come forward. As you know, the vegetation management to protect your property within areas that are already disturbed is allowable. Just to share some photos of that, I'm going to go to the RDA narrative, and I'm going to zoom in. So the photo that you see over here with the garage in it where my cursor is, you can see these photos were taken in August. So you can see they left this pile of brush behind the garage, and they just stopped work in this area when they got the enforcement order. So that is just an example of what was taken out of the area. And then this photo shows, this is standing at the dumpster, with the dumpster to my back, looking out at the area that they had cleared, or managed is a better way to put it. As you can see, it's very well regrown with what was on site now originally. And because this area is an area that does need to remain controlled, we didn't think it was appropriate to propose a significant restoration plan in this area. Because again, this is just vegetation that could ultimately end up becoming a problem. The last part of this is what we're currently proposing. And what we're proposing, let me zoom out a little bit, is to just add a fence through the disturbed area of the property. Now, the fence is intended to define a limit within which they are able to perform vegetation management. It's intended to be inside the area that is currently disturbed. And it's to allow them a place to perform vegetation management on the site and go no further. So that would stop them from further encroaching into a buffer zone. We did provide, and I can go through exactly what they are if you want me to, but we provided a number of notes about the fence and its installation. For example, no closer than 30 feet to a wetland boundary in any case, except for where it's otherwise shown, which is down here in this location, where we would propose for it to just kind of ride the existing tree line. And again, that is to allow them to get into this area to continue to manage vegetation here. We also did provide some notation that, the final location of the fence should be determined in the field in keeping with this intent, no closer than 30 feet, things like that. And that's only because it's not our intention to cut down significant vegetation to put this in. So if I drew a dead straight line on the plan and there's a great big maple tree right here, we want to avoid it. We'll probably kick this whole fence over 5 or 6 feet to avoid that. We've also provided notation for what they would be allowed to do within this area so that it's on the record, and that includes just routine management of vegetation, nothing that is going to disturb the earth, nothing that is going to change grading or drainage patterns, no use of fertilizers, pesticides, herbicides, even though I spelled it wrong on the plan, I'm noticing now, and things like that. So what our intent for this was, our intent was that by the time we got here, the wetland boundary would be redelineated. And we could either update the plan and send it in as a matter of record, or we could just go ahead and start, performing this work, ensuring that we are outside of this area, and we would be glad to provide an as-built of that after the fact. So we are, very happy to work with the commission to resolve these issues, however you folks are the most comfortable. What I might suggest would be ideal for us is that we either pick up the new delineation on an as-built plan, or perhaps we could, if the commission was comfortable to make a determination, it could be contingent on us providing the delineation, the formal delineation on this plan and revising appropriately to meet this intent. But I will certainly, that is my suggestion, I will leave it up to the commission. So I'm glad to answer any question that you folks may have.
Do you have anything else to say, Matt?
No, I think, you said you already have the delineation?
Yeah, the delineation is done. It was, by the time I got involved in this, we had a deadline of getting this RDA back to you folks by, I believe it was August 30th.
Correct.
And that didn't give me time to line up my sub-consultants to get the delineation done, and I didn't want to ask for an extension. So we did provide the plan based on record data that we had. I did look at the delineation in the field, the remnants of the flags from the prior delineation, and it looked very reasonable to me.
No, I get that, but I'm saying you did the delineation. Did you already
It's
field
done,
locate
yeah.
the flags, or does that still need to be done?
We still need to field locate the flags, which I anticipate having done next week.
Okay.
But the delineation is done.
So reasonably by the October, is it 8th?
Yeah.
October 9th. Reasonably, you could have that updated plan, let's say, a week before October 9th. Would that be reasonable, or would that be tight?
I can probably make that work, sure.
Yeah, I would definitely be more comfortable with that.
Yeah,
Um,
definitely.
And it would allow me to do my kind of final through, because often when we don't have something that's an early step, I'm not gonna do a full review of it. I'm gonna,
Right.
say that there's something notably missing. And I understand it may line up very closely, and it may seem sort of like a waste of time, but that's just kind of our process. So I understand and appreciate how you brought this forward, but that would be my recommendation. I think other follow-up question would just be, functionally over time, is there a difference between the way the area that's hashed in orange would be maintained versus the rest of the area outside the fence, or was that simply to show what had already been cleared?
That is just to show what had already been cleared. I think the intention for within the fence line or within the proposed fence line would really just be mowing. Just to manage the vegetation that's in there so things don't get overgrown and kind of creep closer and closer to the usable portion of the site. And so they could use it for recreation and passive recreation, things like that.
Yeah.
And again, it is in an area that's currently disturbed, no intention of disturbing new area to do that.
Yeah, I think that's kind of where, I don't know, for me, this close to the river, I always kind of think of how can things best benefit the ecology, the habitat, all of that. If this is something where they're looking to have it just be mowed as a recreation area, sort of more like, keep it as sort of a lawn, then I think we'd want to know that on the plan. Otherwise, I would ask if, seasonality is possible in terms of, can mowing be over the late fall, early spring, just to sort of maintain that area as better habitat through the year, and avoid unnecessary population sinks for different species while still providing for maintenance so that you don't get overtaken by vines, trees, large shrubs, things like that. So just, I guess, something to think about before submitting the new plan with the delineation.
In
Sure, and that is a fair comment.
the fence line, I see where the 30-foot is, but then doesn't it collapse down?
Yeah, and I think the purpose of that is that's an area that is already very narrow between the existing building and the wetland boundary. So one option is they ask for a variance and the commission decides if they want to issue a variance. The other option is they can stop that fence at the 30-foot mark and have no fence between there and the open area, and just let that tree line kind of speak for itself as a protective area. You could take the fence within the 30-foot area and supplant it with conservation posts,
Yeah.
and that would suffice. It would actually do the same.
Yeah.
Same thing.
It'll mark it off, but
Yeah.
without a fence.
Right.
Yeah. Wildlife movement also.
Right, I was thinking
sort of a
My two
factor
comments
there.
were to make sure the fence is off the ground, and I would be a lot more comfortable if that fence was farther away from that wetland boundary. Starting closer to the 50-foot line. Don't we have a 50-foot no-touch?
No structures. Fences. Yeah.
Yeah.
I believe we've done those, I believe, at the landscaping 30 before, I believe. I'd have to double check on that to see if we've ever
Right.
held that to 50 feet.
Just, it's a sensitive area.
But again, I think with the conservation post, you'd have the demarcation, but you'd also allow for movement.
Yeah, and I think I heard someone mention too, that we could leave, the fence up a little bit from the
Mhm.
grade to allow for pasture
Passage.
small critters if we needed to, and I not an issue, yeah.
Do you have any comments from, any more comments from the commission?
No, I just agree with what the commission is saying. I think we can replace that where that fence starts to dip too closely to the wetland boundary. We can put conservation posts there instead.
Yeah.
Sort of stop the fence where we see the 30-foot line.
I muted Dot when we were having a sort of a feed or delay issue, so I can ask her to unmute, and you can maybe ask Dot if she has any comments.
Are you-
I was just curious, how old is the Brad Holmes delineation?
Brad delineated that within the last 30 days.
Yeah.
Oh,
he said it-
okay.
He said it was recent, so.
All right.
So yeah, I guess my recommendation would be we continue this to the 9th, and they will provide the updated plan a week, I would say a week before. If it's gonna be slightly less than a week, I think that's fine, just let me know. In the meantime, I will follow up if there are any other questions that pop up between now and then, but at least you have a few comments to work with.
Do I have a motion to continue this
Sure.
matter to October 9th?
I'll make that motion.
Second. Okay, take a vote on that. Dot?
Yes?
Megan?
Yes.
Linda's a yes. Marilyn?
Yes,
Brian?
Yes.
Motion passes. We'll see you on the 9th. Thanks.
Great, thank you all for your time, appreciate it.
Thank you.
You bet. Moving on, I'm going to open a discussion on a request for amendment that was filed by Grady Consulting on behalf of the applicant Royston Properties. Do you have anything to say about that, Matt?
Yeah, just procedurally, for everybody's reference, when we receive an application, to back up a little bit, we had an extension request, I don't know how many months ago, again, 6 months maybe, however long ago that was. And as part of the review, there was a requirement by the commission that they come up with a stormwater fix for some issues there on Marion Drive. And they had mentioned that there was a requirement from the previous planning board approval for a rain garden. They had shown a rain garden at the time during the extension. The commission was looking for the best possible option. Rick Grady from Grady Engineering had reached out to me and asked if they needed to file a new NOI. I said they had the option of doing an amendment request or a new NOI, that it was really up to them and their timeline. They said they do the amendment. But just to sort of quickly go through how we handle amendment requests, applicant must provide credible evidence if the activity involved is considered exempt or limited activity. In this case, it wasn't. So what we do is we schedule an action item, and here we are right now. So it's get handled in a public meeting. At the meeting, the commission should determine whether it be appropriate to hear the changes as an amendment request. And if they do, then we would schedule it as a public hearing. It would need a butter notification. It would need public hearing notice. For the commission to note, the commission is not required to consider or act upon a request for amendment, and there's no right for the applicant to request a superseding OOC from DEP if the commission does not amend it. The decision to accept a request or to require the applicant to cover peer review expenses should be made at the public meeting with the rationale described in the minutes. The peer review could also be done during the hearing. It is not appropriate to amend OOCs for any change where there could be an increase in detrimental effect to resource areas. It's not appropriate to amend OOCs for major changes. If major changes are proposed, a new NOI should be filed. And I already talked about the public hearing and all of that. So what, I can let Rick go through this. To me, I think it looked like the same rain garden that was pitched during the extension request. And I would suspect that, that's because Rick will say that's probably the best possible thing they can do at that site, and that would be how you would get over that and all the other things that were specified in the OOCs about no further modification and all of that. I'll let Rick go forward with that, and I guess I would say if that's the case, then the commission can start, discussing peer review tonight, because that will take time. If the commission does determine that they think they can hear this as a amendment hearing, then you could kind of get both things going at once and try to expedite the process. But I'll let Rick go with it.
You want to just state your name for the record?
Sure, yes. Rick Grady from Grady Consulting, along with Larry DeMar, the property owner and applicant as well. This is associated with the permit that Larry obtained about 4 years or so ago now. Several buildings proposed and approved in the industrial zoning district off of Royson Drive, so-called, which is really a private driveway across land, to the new buildings, as well as his mother's house in the back. Royson Drive itself was paved and constructed over 50 years ago, well before the wetland bylaws were created within the town, quite likely before a lot of the current regulations on the state level as well. The drainage concept on the development portion of Larry's property for the 6 or so buildings involved constructing 6 large infiltration areas, all designed to infiltrate the 100-year storm event from the developed portions of the site. The drainage calculations at that time demonstrated that by installing all of these basins, infiltration basins uphill of Royson Drive, that runoff to Royson Drive would be reduced after construction. At this point in time, 3 of those systems have been installed, and there's 3 more to be installed as construction progresses on the portions to the right or uphill of Royson Drive. The issue came about on Royson Drive a while ago when there was ponding observed within the roadway itself. That portion of runoff between Royson Drive and the Smelt Brook, or the ponds associated with the Smelt Brook there, it's fairly narrow. It's about 50 feet in width of vegetation, kind of a sparse grassy type vegetation, clearly all disturbed in the past. The pavement itself has been in there quite a while, obviously over 50 years, and there's almost like a paved swale which has gotten filled with sediment and caused backup into the roadway itself. What we're proposing is, we think the best solution is to construct a sediment forebay and a rain garden between that discharge from Royson Drive and the pond or Smelt Brook there where it's ultimately flowing. The elevations work out quite well to do that, so that we can remove sediment with a sediment forebay, allow flow into a rain garden to promote additional infiltration, and then have the overflow to the pond and Smelt Brook. This will further reduce the amount of runoff heading in that direction, and provide habitat with the plantings, improved water quality, and get that ponding off of Royson Drive. With that, I'd be glad to answer any questions you have.
Any comments from the commission?
Yeah, did you not mention that it's in the riverfront area? I didn't hear you mention that.
No, I did not mention, I did mention Smelt Brook. I didn't mention within the riverfront area.
Okay.
Yes, yeah.
So, just a couple of points. Number one, I was the acting chairperson when you went through that whole NOI, so I have a little bit more familiarity with the property, and I'm pretty well invested in the orders of conditions protecting that riverfront area. And again, just for the edification of everybody present, the riverfront area is a resource area in and of itself and not a buffer zone. And I know sometimes we get into discussions and how much protection is deserved in this and that. So I wanted to make that point. Also, and I'm quoting from a manual, the MAC Wetlands Buffer Zone Guidebook, and it talks about state law, local regs. So, work proposed by an applicant in a regulatable riverfront area must be designed to meet 4 performance standards under 310 CMR 10.584. And one of those standards is performing a formal alternatives analysis and proving there's no practicable and substantially equivalent economic alternative to the project. Again, 310 CMR 10.584C. So I feel that we can sit here and discuss this as long as we want to, but I feel very strongly that we do need a peer review regarding stormwater management and your proposal.
Mr. Reddy? You want to respond to me, Ms. Cottesoi?
No, it's the commission's discretion whether to have peer review or not, and
Okay.
not going to argue about it. I don't personally think it's necessary, but that's not up my decision.
Matt?
Yeah, no, I think ultimately it's up to the commission to determine whether they think it's appropriate to hear this as an amendment. You know, in the orders of conditions, there is that special condition that we've talked about a lot, saying no additional work or alteration surfaces allowed within the riverfront area. It does say it can only be varied by the commission for good cause and only upon submission of an NOI or an amendment to the order of conditions. And that's a perpetual restriction. So you're at the point now where you're determining whether this is good cause, because we do have submission of an amendment request for the order of conditions. So, yeah, I mean, that would be up to the commission in terms of, I think it was documented that there is a need for a stormwater solution there. So I think if that stormwater solution can fix the issue, then I think it could be stated that that was good cause, and it could be heard as a public hearing for an amendment request, rather than requiring a new NOI. If you do hear it as an amendment request, you still have the right at that point to say no and require an NOI. So I think either way, you're gonna want peer review on this. I don't see a major issue with hearing this as an amendment. When you consider the scale of the project that was approved there, I think you could easily say this was a minor component of the project. It doesn't make it an unimportant one, and it is one that would need a variance if approved as currently proposed. They have requested a variance of the 40-foot no stormwater for this. So, I mean, I would say, I think it's fine for the commission to hear this, and if that's the case, then we need to allow time to put a public hearing notice out, do abutter notifications, and I think if you could get an agreement tonight on peer review, then we could start requesting some proposals. The way we would typically do that, although I think it has been a while since we've put anything out to peer review, would be we go get 3 bids, and typically we would take the lowest one, or we pitch to you what the 3 costs are, and you pick. So, yeah. That's what I think. I think it may very well be that this is the only possible stormwater solution that makes sense. It may be that Rick is correct, that once all 6 infiltration galleries are online, that this will absolutely, be the solution that will work. It would be nice to have, a second on that, so.
Nice, I'm sorry, nice to have.
A second opinion.
Is anyone prepared to make a motion on this?
Would you like a motion that we request a peer review?
Well,
Which motion are you looking for?
there's two possible motions, of course, to accept the request for the amendment, subsequent, contingent upon the peer review. Unless that requires a second motion.
Yeah, I would say correct me if I'm wrong, but I think the way you'd handle this is you're going to vote on whether to accept this request, therefore triggering hearing this as an amendment request. And then it would be a matter of how long you think you need to get things out in order to get a hearing scheduled. Because with the timelines on the newspapers, it's not a terribly quick turnaround time. So
Yeah.
we're not looking at October 9th. We'd probably be looking at the 23rd or maybe November 13th if you thought it would take some time to put all the abutter stuff together. And then what you'd be looking to do is get agreement from the applicant that they agree to peer review and that they'll drop a check off. But the check is gonna have to determine after we get a quote. So basically, we have to have agreement now. I'll reach out for quotes, and then by the time we start the hearing, they can agree to it, we can put it out.
Yeah, the 9th is too soon.
Yeah.
We can get that together in the next couple of days as far as the butter notices and that end of things, and so I think the 23rd would be appropriate.
Yeah, so I think the commission would be looking for a motion, and any issue with peer review from the applicant, is that?
No, I actually think it would be helpful in this case.
I agree. I think it could expedite the process.
Yep.
So I think procedurally, the way we do this, you
Yeah,
vote to accept the request and.
the amendment request. So that would be the
Right.
first motion.
Yeah.
Okay, anybody else want to make it?
I can make a motion.
Go ahead, Brian.
Make the motion to accept the amendment request.
I'll
We have a
second it.
Okay, we already had a second from Megan, but thank you, Marilyn.
You're welcome.
We're gonna vote on that, Dot.
Yes,
Megan?
Yes.
Mine is yes. Marilyn?
Yes,
And Brian?
Yes.
Okay, so that, motion passes.
And then I would say we're going to schedule the hearing for October 23rd.
That works for us.
And I'm going to reach out to 3 consultants to request proposals for peer review of the stormwater solution. I mean, that, we're not looking at peer reviewing, and anybody can pitch in on this, we're not looking at peer reviewing the entire project. What we're looking at peer reviewing is the amendment request, but specifically
and the
aimed
proposed
at whether the
solution, which is in the
proposal-
riverfront area, so yes,
Right.
that's what we're looking for.
But the, exactly, we're peer reviewing the amendment request, but specifically what we're asking them to look at is whether what's proposed for a stormwater solution is the best possible solution.
Right, and again, incorporating alternatives, analysis, and all of that.
Yes, and having said that, we would need an alternatives analysis in order to have them peer review it. So, again, all this is gonna come out after the hearing starts, but we'll at least be able to get quotes in. Typically, we're already in a hearing process, and then it takes time to get quotes, and things are usually pretty delayed by that, so it'll definitely speed up the process. I just wanted to make sure it's clarified what we're asking for on
Yep.
this, because it's important.
I had a lot of uncertainty in what I was writing for tonight, so we actually already started the alternatives analysis and have most of it ready to go. So, not a huge surprise. We'll be glad to work with the commission to get this taken care of once and for all.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a good night.
Is there anything else before we move on to enforcement?
I just want to double check. So you were saying we're fine with the amendment motion, and you don't need a separate motion for the peer review?
No.
No.
Okay, great.
No, I think all they need to do is just agree to peer review, and then the real agreement will come later on after we have quotes,
No, I
and
just-
they'll pick one and drop a check off.
No, I'm just double checking.
Thank you.
Have a good night.
Thank you both.
Thank
Good
you, night.
evening.
Like I said, I think I'm a little out of it tonight.
And I'm
Little
really trying to be very specific, so there are not any
Yeah.
places to drop the ball.
Sure, no, that's.
Because again, as I said, I lived with that whole process
Yeah, no, we're
for
good,
like 10 months, so,
we're good. I'm tired, but I'm not out of it. I'm
that's
here.
good, that's good. And who's close enough to poke you?
I am. I have this. I can also hit him with it. All right, are we okay to move on to enforcement? I
Yes.
guess on Roberts Road, there's no update?
There is,
Oh, good.
sorry, late update. I received a phone call and an email from Jenna Carroll of 44 Rabbith. Just said that they've had a personal matter and that neither one of them would be able to be in attendance this evening. They did speak with Jason, the building inspector.
Oh, good.
He's aware of the current situation with the retaining wall. His recommendation was that they start with the building permit application, which he did send to them. She said she'll be dropping it off either tomorrow or Friday. And that, I guess, was all Jason's recommendation for now, was just get the full application in. And then she mentioned, as far as the dock that had the little duck house on it, as mentioned before, she said they can easily remove it with minimal disruption. It basically just needs to be lifted up. Then they can move it up to the driveway to dismantle. She said the width is only 3 feet, so the water line is minimally impacted. Should you wish that they remove this, they'd like to complete the task before it gets much colder, since they would need to get into the water to do it. So that was just a little side note, that if the commission does want that removed, we may want to tell them to remove it soon, so that the water's not freezing cold when they go to do it. Otherwise, I would say we can push this to October 9th or 23rd. I did reach out to them, I think, a couple weeks ago, just to let them know that Jason Silva is leaving. So if they wanted to talk to the building inspector, they needed to get in there pretty quickly, because once he's out. I think Paul Armstrong is
Paul, yeah.
probably gonna pick up some of the slack, but I imagine is gonna be pretty busy. So, yeah. Anyways, they've started the process, but they're not done for tonight, so that's the update. So, just, I guess, up to the commission on when they want to continue this to.
And what about the duck house? Do we want to,
I have it in our notes that we asked them to remove it last time.
Yeah.
all right, so they could do that before it gets cold?
Right, please.
Yeah, and I guess just procedurally, we probably said that in the meeting, but didn't issue anything like an
Right.
enforcement order, but something like that, I think, can be removed without an enforcement order, given that there's no disturbance to
Right.
it, so. I'll follow up with her on that. What do you think for a continuance date, 2 weeks or a month?
Well, it's funny because of the building inspector part of it, timing-wise.
Right. I think he's done a week and a half. So I think either way, they're gonna fall into that. I don't know if they get it in tomorrow or Friday, he may be able to review it pretty quickly, he may not. So, I mean, you can put it on for 2 weeks if you want, and we just have to continue it again.
I'll
Sure.
put it on for 2 weeks.
Okay.
Yeah, why don't we do that? Continue it to October 9th.
Do you need a motion?
I don't think so.
No, I don't think so, no.
No, not for enforcement, just,
Yeah.
All right, what about Wildwood Circle, 2 Wildwood Circle?
okay. 2 Wildwood Circle, we got the homeowner right here.
There you are.
Yeah, you go up there, but I can
Feel free to
I can
go
give a
out.
quick, I can give a quick breakdown. We get a call from,
Just identify yourself for the record when you get up there, please.
Hi, I'm Dan Cleggett, owner of 2 Wildwood Circle.
Thank you.
so we get a call about work going on behind 2 Wildwood Circle within the riverfront area of the stream. It was pitched as a 2-story structure, or something along those lines. So we went out and took a look at it from the neighbor's property. It was like a
Playhouse.
kids playhouse thing. It was big. I will say. I will say.
Well, we got
when
3
we
of
say
them, so
kids
they
playhouse,
need
it
some
wasn't
space
like
in there.
kids playhouse. It was like big kids playhouse. Again, I haven't been on the property yet, but so just it seemed to me, and we had a discussion after the fact, but to me it looked like trees had been cleared, something was built, so we sent out a notice of violation. Hey, come to the next meeting. After that, the owner stopped by my office and talked to me and said that all he didn't cut any trees down. He said he just built a play area where he had disassembled an above-ground pool. Above-ground pool was put in, I believe, by the previous homeowner. I have no record of it being approved. The riverfront area at this property does go up to the house, probably about halfway through the house. So we were supposed to set up a site visit before this meeting. We weren't able to do that, but it was already on the agenda, so I said, we're gonna do it anyways, we're gonna talk about it, or we're gonna continue it. It's up to the commission as far as whether they want to take part in a site visit or not. That may not be necessary. It's probably best just to let staff take care of that, and apologies, we weren't able to do that yet. It may just be a situation that needs permitting and retro. Jason already went out there to take a look at it and said that it does not need a building permit. But that's not really relevant to us, it's different standards. So if it is just a play area that was in place of a pool that was not permitted, but no trees were taken down, then it's probably the filing in retro. If not, then we'll figure that out once we do the site visit, and we'll talk
Yeah,
about it
it
at the
was
next
done,
meeting.
sorry, I didn't mean to cut
Go
you
on.
off.
No, you're good,
It
I'm
was done within my fenced-in backyard, and she mentioned something about like 50 feet from the water or whatever. There's like that little stream way down there in the backwoods. Now, my fence line to that stream is at least 50 feet, at least. And we didn't do anything outside of my fenced-in backyard, we just put up a new swing set and a playhouse and in place of the pool that was there, so.
Yeah, so if that's all true, I think it's a quick site
Right.
visit.
So you can
and-
assess that at the site visit.
Yeah, I can assess that at the
and
site
wrap it up.
visit, so when we
Yeah.
have a follow-up at probably the next meeting, then I can just give a recommendation that it needs a filing in retro. You could give them a deadline for a filing in retro, and if you don't get a filing by a certain date, then you issue an enforcement order mandated filing. and it'll be pretty easy, and it'll be minimal paperwork.
Sounds good.
Great.
Sounds
Awesome. Next meeting, October 9th,
Right.
So
you and I,
I'll meet with you before that
Yeah.
and then come again on the 9th?
yeah,
Okay,
just let me know. Let me know whatever makes sense for next week. I
next
guess.
week? Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I'll give you a call, tomorrow or the next day by the end of this week to set up a day for next week.
Awesome.
All right, thanks, guys.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Good night.
And what about 11 Wharf Lane, Matt?
We already did it.
Yep.
Oh, yes, we did. That's good.
Oh, yes. Look at that. Hooray. We're all a little tired, sorry.
Some meeting minutes, are we down to that? All right.
Did everybody have a chance to look at the minutes?
No.
Yep.
Are we in a position to make a motion to approve the minutes?
Yeah.
Who'd like to make that motion?
I'll make a motion to approve the July 2024 minutes.
All right, do I have a second on that?
Second,
Second.
Okay.
give it to
Thank you.
Dot.
Thank you, Dot. All right, I'm going to vote on that. Dot?
Yes,
Megan?
Yes.
Colleen is a yes. Marilyn?
Yes.
And Brian?
Yes.
Thanks for a minute. Thank you very much. The minutes are approved. You want to give us a couple of updates?
Yeah, and I actually added a few updates, not to make the meeting longer, but they'll be quick.
Thanks.
16 Bagnell Administrative Review, we received an application on August 22nd to remove a large oak tree from their yard within jurisdiction. That was a hazard to theirs and their neighbors' properties. Tree was large and split with visible rotting. I did a site visit with the town's tree warden, and I'm sorry, what was that?
Sorry to interrupt. I thought I was the last one, so I thought you guys had done, you're already on something else.
Yeah, we're on something else. You're good.
All right, I took a bunch of pictures of the whole area, so
You can email those to me, too.
you just, okay, all right. Yeah, I just didn't know I could show you guys now, so,
No, I mean, either way, we'd have to do a site visit.
I'll take, either way, you
Yeah.
have to do it, okay.
You can send me pictures if you want, but either way, we're gonna do a site visit anyways.
Okay, all right, I just wanted to check on that.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Good night.
So I did a site inspection and issued a permit with no restrictions. It was very clearly a hazard to both properties. So that's an easy one, and
What about the Kingston Street culvert?
I issued an emergency permit for the replacement of the culvert that goes under Kingston Street in front of 15 Kingston Street. So, yeah, that was kind of funny wording on the agenda, but it has nothing to do with 15 Kingston Street. It is just across the street from 15 Kingston Street. So this is work that was contracted by the Highway Department. And really, I don't think it even needed an emergency permit because they initially had said they were gonna build a head wall, and that would be outside of the usual exempt maintenance of a roadway, and then they didn't build the head wall anyways. So it really was just work that I would have considered exempt to begin with. So there'll be no follow-up filing, the work was done, the work looks fine, and that is wrapped up now. Couple more quick updates. We just applied for a US DOT culvert replacement grant for the Lake Street culvert. As we are ready for construction on that project, but we don't have funding, and we've been denied on 2 successive NOAA Fish Passage grant rounds. So we did just get that in. It is an 80-20 match, which is not ideal. The project is expected to cost something in the realm of $1.6 million for various reasons. So we will be also applying for the DER culverts round when that comes out, although that does not have a lot of funding. It might be able to help with the 20% match. And we will be applying for MVP. And MVP, I expect, could pay for probably the entire thing. I did ask if we could use the money we were already awarded for MVP for the Carrera property purchase. That isn't happening now, and was told no, but you know, miss all the shots you don't take. So, On that note, we are still holding that money pending discussions with the new landowner, hoping that we can still work on something there. So stay tuned on that. Quick update on the Mass DOT parcel. A year and a half ago or so, we got CPC to approve the purchase of the parcel that we're going to add to Camp Nikon. And we needed to do our own appraisal. We did our own appraisal, and when I went back to DOT to negotiate, the person I had been negotiating with had retired and apparently had lost all of the files, and nobody has access to any files. So apparently also had not done any internal canvassing, although I was told that he had. So we had to start everything from scratch. DOT went through their whole process again, but they have been holding at the originally offered price of $100,000, which we did get from CPC. However, our appraisal came out at $67,500, and DOT has not shown a willingness to work with us on price. They had lost their original appraisal, and when I reached out to the appraiser that they had contracted to see if he could provide them their document again, they then said the document was out of date and that they had already contracted a new appraisal that came in significantly higher than our appraisal. So it's been a process. I'm still working on it. I am now reaching out to our appraiser to see if the appraisal that he gave us a year and 3 months ago is out of date. And that way, maybe if that goes up, we will just be able to use the CPC money, make the purchase, and go about our happy lives. And if not, I will be working on trying to source whatever the difference is between our appraised value and the asking price of $100,000, whether it's private donations or random pots of money I can find around town. So that's where that is. And
I don't have any random pots of money, just so I can skip my house.
starting at your house. Callista Farm, I mentioned earlier, the bill pay on that.
Dot?
Done.
Can I speak to
Yeah,
the
please.
appraisal
Yeah, please.
and the CPC money? Check when you got that money and how soon it has to be used. You may have to write to or contact CPC about the problem, so you don't lose it.
CPC's not gonna take my money.
CPC has been vigorously holding people to timetables.
I think vigorously is.
Nefarious actors, not outstanding town employees, but I appreciate it. I will reach out, just to be sure. I
Okay.
appreciate that.
Okay.
Simple extension, it'll be fine.
Callista Farm, we had a CPC article to treat the invasives there. That work was done, I believe, in July. Sprayed a lot of knapweed, spotted knapweed and brown knapweed, swallowwort, which is the species that they say monarchs will lay their eggs on because they mistake it for milkweed and then the larvae die, and a couple of various shrub types and Asiatic bittersweet. I went to the site yesterday. All of the work they did looked really good. The grassland itself, about 80 to 90% of it looks fantastic with little blue stem, so we're going in the right direction there. Spoke with the highway department about mowing earlier today. We're probably just gonna mow some of the areas that were sprayed and leave most of the good-looking sand plain grassland there for the winter as added cover, and we're going in the right direction on that property. I'm just gonna keep moving through these. Delano Ave, we have the stormwater BMP that's been reworked once or twice down at the end before the stormwater all goes out into the Jones River. It had been overtaken by invasive species, and we had had a lot of complaints about the condition of the walkway leading down to access the river. We were able to earmark money in the last fiscal year with the state, or I should say the state earmarked money for us, that we were able to do some of the retrofitting there. We added some granite steps to make it more consistent walking down. We added a nice flat walking surface out of cobblestone so that it no longer slopes down, and we added a cast iron handrail going down the stairs, so it's now much safer to get down there. And we contracted the spraying of, or the, close application of invasive plants in the rain garden and down the stairs, which predominantly was mugwort. Unfortunately, garlic mustard was already done for the year when they did their treatment, so we will have to follow up with that. But we were able to get the invasive sprayed. I would say 99% of them were killed. There will be, I'm sure, maintenance over time, but we were able to get some native shrubs planted in their place. Some of the native silky dogwood, black chokeberry, and buttonbush. And so we just have that kind of wrapped up. It's going to be a little bit more maintenance over time, but we're starting to make way with some things that needed to be done a long time ago. Final update, Silver Lake, I've been emailing the commission now and then about water levels in Silver Lake. Obviously, we didn't really have any rain through the month of August or September, and over time, Brockton has relied increasingly on Silver Lake as a source. There was an extended period of time this year where they were not able to take any water from Aquaria, so they really don't have any other sources anymore for various reasons, from contamination or otherwise. So they take, on average, through most of this year, 10 to 11 million gallons a day out of Silver Lake. The town administrator and I requested a meeting with the mayor of Brockton, the DPW director, a little over a month ago. Shortly after, as they apparently were planning to, they started taking 1.5 million gallons a day from Aquaria, which meant that it was no longer going down by 1 inch per day, but only by 1/2 inch per day. We are at roughly 3 feet lower, 3 feet below zero, if you will, at Silver Lake. So there is a significant receding there. We are pressuring the city to take some steps in terms of water restrictions. It does not appear that that's going to happen. We are trying to work with local legislators to see if they will free up some emergency water money in order to get Brockton from the 1.5 that they're taking to the permitted 3.8 million gallons per day from Aquaria. They're not doing that now because it costs quite a bit of money.
Oh, so it's a money issue.
It is a money issue. So we figure there are funds out there that are supposed to be for water emergencies, and depending on the way you look at this, you could say it is or it is not a water emergency for a municipality. The municipality's use of this resource area is causing a serious issue for the ecology and for, honestly, Kingston, because if I am not speaking out of turn, I believe Kingston's water restrictions are based on flow in the Jones River. And the natural headwaters of the Jones River have not connected to the Jones River in months. So
there is an effect.
there's definitely an effect, and there's a commonality there between the two situations where you could see it would be feasible for there to be a water restriction for the municipality that's taking the water from the initial source. Bottom line, you probably all know everything that was done over the last 10 to 15 years on the Jones River, the Wapping Road dam removal, and then the Elm Street dam removal brought river herring back to Forge Pond Dam. They're trying to get back into Silver Lake, their ancestral headwaters. That's some of the best herring breeding habitat probably in the whole region. It's 640 acres. The bottom of Silver Lake is perfect for what they want when they're breeding, the little kind of gravelly cobble. The herring showed up there, I believe it was very shortly after the Wapping Road Dam was removed, because the Elm Street one had a fish ladder. There was a temporary fish ladder put in 2019 in Forge Pond Dam. So theoretically, you can get herring into Forge Pond, which is the impounded portion of the Jones River before Silver Lake, and get them into Silver Lake itself. The numbers were very low for the first few years there, and then this year, the estimated number of river herring that made it in either through the fish ladder or from being netted over by Mass Division of Marine Fisheries, Jones River Watershed Association, and my department is roughly 20,000. Figuring that half of those would be female, a lot of scientific studies say females can lay 60,000 to 100,000 eggs, right? So say you had 10,000 females, multiply that by the low end, 60,000, I don't have the math, it was like 600 million, right? So in theory, figure a lot of those probably didn't hatch or got predated quickly. You still have an awful lot of juvenile river herring that need to get out to the ocean. And they want to get out to the ocean essentially now. October is probably maybe the sweet spot. Really, they probably want to be moving already. We've been pushing very, very hard for flow from Brockton because we want to get those fish out to the ocean. This could be the beginning of our herring run coming back, or it could be wiped out,
Decimated.
right? So when you talk to somebody at Division Marine Fisheries, they say, oh, well, maybe they won't, maybe they'll just kind of hang out there over the winter. They know that they're not going to go out if flow starts in December or January. They'd be essentially stuck there for, probably another year or so, or at least until spring. But it's just, you have a lot of predation pressure in there. You have some huge non-native species like largemouth and smallmouth bass. And even their own prey might collapse over the winter if you have however many millions of, herring in there trying to feed and grow. We want them out, and we've been pushing really hard for that. But unfortunately, I don't have any good, happy updates about that, other than it did rain the other day, so that was nice. So that stops the
It'll
bleeding
rain
a little bit.
tomorrow.
So pray for more rain, and we are trying to reach out through
Have you heard
our
from
local
anybody? Mariana
legislators.
Lenatra, is that who you're talking about?
I did get a call back from Representative Lenatra last week, and then I did just send them an email, I think it was yesterday, just specifically asking about the water funds, because I'm told that those exist, but what do I know? So hopeful that we can make some headway with this. And Pat Hill from Brockton, the DPW director, did reach out and say they are in the process of trying to hire somebody to, assess these sort of things in terms of water restrictions and water use. So again, that's not going to help us right now get these herring out to the ocean, but over time, that is a good thing. And I know that OCPC and the state, there are a lot of people right now that are looking at a long-term viable solution for Brockton so that they don't have to be as reliant on Silver Lake, and Silver Lake doesn't have to be impacted. I mean, Silver Lake is an impaired water body now, really because of transfers from Mont Ponce Pond, especially after 2016 and 2017 when Silver Lake went down to minus 99 inches. So we're trying to avoid that sort of thing again. We're trying to push as hard as we can to get flow. It's just not looking super hopeful right now. So if anybody can do anything, reach out to somebody, ask a question, see if people can reach out, that'd be helpful.
So if you got money to pay for the aquaria, that's all the problem for this year?
No. No, to my understanding of it, there's no one thing alone that's going to solve this. I mean, we need the max taken from aquaria. We need rain. We need to allow them to divert from Mont Ponce Pond, which they can legally do starting on October 1st. But there also needs to be water in Mont Ponce Pond above a certain level for them to do that. On top of that, like I said, in 2016 and 17, Silver Lake was way down. They diverted a lot of water for a long time out of Mont Ponce, which is, at least especially back then, not good water. And now Silver Lake is impaired because of it, so that's a factor too. And the last thing I think that would help, that we would like to see, is some form of water restrictions. I understand they're difficult for the city to implement, they're difficult to police, but some people are gonna do the right thing automatically, and there's a little bit of savings there. If you can just get some people, some public facilities or businesses to not water their lawns. I mean, I don't know, we need all of those things together, and then I think we have a shot of getting them out probably sometime in November. But November could work. I think December doesn't. So that's where we're at. If anybody has any questions, they can follow up in terms of questions on how they can help.
Thank you.
I threw a lot at you there. If anybody has questions about anything, just ask.
Well, your email was very good, so if people just printed that out, it'd be good.
Perfect.
It's a good resource. All right, so we're done with updates. There's no public hearings,
I think we're done.
so I would entertain a motion to,
Oh, our next meeting, did you say that part?
wait a minute.
Is that part of what you were just gonna say?
No, the next meeting is going to be on October 9th, 2024, starting at 6:30 PM. The time now is 8 o'clock. We ready? Do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Dot?
Yes?
Megan?
Yes.
Queen is a yes. Marilyn?
Yes.
And Brian?
Yes.
All right, meeting's closed. See you next time. Thank
Good
you
night,
so
Dot.
much.
Night, Dot.
Night, guys.
Good night.